Yeah, so I've been asked to input around this question. How do you go about building a microchurch network in Europe? People are trying to write books about this, but I got to try to do it in 8 minutes. Let's just jump in. So 13 years ago, God planted us in a little market town called Bicester, Oxfordshire. He's held us there. Believe me, I've tried to leave so that we could do something deep and see something beautiful birthed in our area. Our microchurch network is called Journey, and our network of relationships is now a tangible presence in our town, a tangible church presence in our town. We're known by the townies as the Filter People. That's the name of our for-profit coffee shop. We're a network of 6 microchurches guided by a college of 24 covenanted leaders. We are served by 12 individuals who give varying amounts of their time to serve the microchurches in matters that are bigger than the lay leaders can handle. We have over 15 missional spaces where we are ambassadors for Jesus, and that's not including our normal everyday life. We take the presence of Jesus to the lonely, to crafters, to basketball players, to those struggling with their mental health, to those pursuing the well-being space. Jesus is leading us to fight for justice for displaced people, for the disabled, to lead choirs, to work well, to teach piano, go cold water swimming, all the while making disciples as we go. It's so beautiful, it often moves me to tears, and to try to put words to it cheapens it. You have to come and visit. So how would I coach someone? What would I say to someone who says, hey, I want to build a microchurch network? I think many of you guys are going to resonate with these things. All people all over the world are like, we're coming together and like, Jesus has had me on the same journey. So some of this won't be new, but I've just tried to put some words to it, and hopefully it'll even help you as you're coaching and talking with people. But I think if you're going to build a microchurch network, the very first thing that you have to do is check yourself. Do you really believe that God wants to use your mechanic to see his church become a movement again? Your mechanic? You say, I don't even know his name. Exactly. The microchurch movement is at its core all about releasing the priesthood of believers, all believers. It's enabling ordinary, everyday people to be disciple makers and lead church. Those people are going to be able to go to places that those of us in this room could never go. If you want to build a microchurch network, you have to do some work to change your mental map and take some people with you on the journey. Changing the way you think is the only way to lay a foundation for a microchurch network. Like begets like. Your disciples will think like you. We humans, we navigate the world by creating mental maps of how things work. They're shorthand that makes sense of complex realities. These mental maps are not just logical, they're emotional. They're tied to experiences and memories of years gone by. The mental maps we've inherited of what church is were drawn for a different reality than ours. Our inability and failure to adapt to cultural changes have muddied the waters and left the mental maps of what church is really difficult to shift. Graham Carey says we have an ecclesial arthritis. Think of the simple mental map we have that church is a place you go, a meeting you hold, rather than the picture Jesus taught us that church is a people. I'm still amazed at how many of us use a language that contradicts our theological beliefs. Half a century into the missional Reformation, and we still talk about going to church. We made this shift when my daughter was 4 years old. We've raised our family to understand that church is a people. We have the church over to our home. We go meet with the church at such and such place. We wonder what the church would think about things. We ask the church to play. It changes the way you live. To pray, sorry, we do play with them too, but we ask them to pray. Consider the picture of the two maps you're looking at. The map on the left was drawn to help seamen navigate the oceans. and account for a curvature of the earth in a way that could only allow them, or that could allow them to draw a two-dimensional line from one place to the next and not go off course. It's not an accurate picture of the world's land masses as they really are. The map on the right is a more accurate one. But the map we all know and we draw to the front of our mind's eye when we think about maps is the one we inherited, the one we were taught in primary school. And it has served us well, keeping the US and Europe at the center, which fit our narrative. The place between the old maps and the new is a liminal place. Changing our mental maps requires intentional practice, diligence, and the safety of a community as we work it out. Some call it deconstruction. I just call it necessary. John Rittner, in his book, Positively Irritating, says, "To those open to a new paradigm of church, there lies another possibility. We can embrace the challenges in the same way oysters embrace sand. Instead of trying to expel the sand, we have the opportunity to come around our new normal, not through compromise, but with creativity and new imagination, new thinking, new practices, so that over time we allow the imposition to form something precious. Much like the pearl making process, learning how to form new expressions of church will test our health and maturity and take significant time. But if we're open to adaptation and innovation and willing to persevere, I believe the irritants we find all around us can catalyze the creation of a more robust and Christ-like community. Here are a few of the mental maps that started as practices for us, but now just become the way we do things, the way we think about things. They have not been easy, and it's taken a long time. But now we feel the beauty of the new, and we marvel how exciting church is again. Many of our folks have had to quit jobs or leave their traditional church in order to find the space to really take on board these new ways of thinking. I have a hard time now. I've been interviewed for a few podcasts recently, and the questions that I'm asked, I don't even think in those ways. I was asked recently, what kind of people are finding their way into a microchurch? And I just had to stop and say, people don't find their way into a microchurch. Microchurches find their way into people. It's just a whole different way of thinking. Once you begin to make these kind of shifts and you give it the time it needs to happen, I suspect that forming a microchurch network will look something like this. You will clarify your call. You'll live as a missionary. You'll start to make disciples. You'll start to form a community that's on mission. And then a microchurch will emerge. And if you follow Jesus as that microchurch, he will call you to raise and release others into their calling. And you'll send them off on their missionary journey to make disciples and form communities and see another microchurch birth. And over time, before you know it, you have a few microchurches in an area and you love each other. You're the same family. You're birthed from the same relational network. And so you start to figure out how you can help each other, how you can share skills, how you can collaborate, how you can make the journey easier for each other. And no doubt others along the way that God has been stirring and starting little communities on their own will find you and will find a safe place to connect. And the network of relationship becomes this beautiful place where the gospel can travel, where the message of Jesus can go out to other people that not every one of us individually could reach. If you want to build a microchurch network, you'll have to have the courage to call church whatever you decide is your ecclesial minimum. For us here in our context, we've decided on these 4 things. When we see a group of people worshiping Jesus as Lord, sharing life in community, knowing their mission and going on that mission and discipling one another, we call it church. Once you start to call things church, you'll have to find a container that will help those things be held and served. That's that adaptive organic system. And we've inherited a wineskin that was pioneered first in Tampa Underground. I am so grateful for them, how they've given us their learning, but told us that we have to contextualize it in our own way. You have to find a new wineskin that will hold your brave people and your brave ideas. And for us, this model just fits a lot more of what I see in the New Testament when I read the scriptures. You've got the house churches and groups of churches. You've got a collective of leaders like the Council at Jerusalem, elders and people that care about the whole thing. And then you have some deacons, some servants who are doing a little bit of extra work to allow the message of Jesus to go out. If you want to start a microchurch, you'll have to innovate your own wineskin that will hold your new wine. And the good news is, though, Jesus is at the front. He's leading the way. He promised to build his church.